welcome back to Debaters Season 2, a debate game show for high school students here in Vietnam. Produced and broadcasted by VTV, National Educational Channel of Vietnam, and British University, Vietnam. I'm your host, Dustin Xavier. So let's start with the motion right away. The motion for today, that governments of developing countries should disincentivize students from pursuing higher education overseas. So what does this mean? It's the concept of brain drain. So brain drain, you have one student from this country, they go to another country and get a higher education, but they may or may not return. But when they don't return, ultimately, it can potentially hurt the original country they came from. Because countries, especially developing countries, they need the higher education to help improve certain things that the country has issues with. In today's topic, there is a lot to discuss, and I'm very excited because this is the quarterfinals. And contestants, don't worry, viewers at home, there might be a team here tonight. If they lose, they do move on to the semifinals. I just want to make that very, very clear. So, without further ado, let me please welcome the teams for tonight.
So basically, we did the best in the last round, but one thing that we need to improve in order to show a better performance next round is that we need a stronger connection between the members in the group. Last round, we lack of that, so it leads to some unwanted results. Our first reaction to this motion is that we once again have to deal with education and economics, which is a very controversial and it's a challenging issue. But we have experience in this motion, so it's kind of amazing for us to solve another one.
So I think for this round, in terms of preparation, Team LIVEL, because they're just a new team, this is their first tournament, so they still have a lot of problems with rebuttals. So we focus more on, preemptive rebuttals. We try to say, okay, if the other side says this, what arguments can you run against them? So they will not they can react and respond to the arguments from the other side fast and more effectively in this round.
I think the biggest lesson for our team after the first round of the debaters is that we have to practice more on our time management, because all of our speakers have trouble with putting too much materials on a speech with just 3 or 4 minutes, and that is really detrimental to our case. I think this motion is quite classic. So when preparing for this motion, we have to really go into deep details that on normal lives we just think it is very obvious.
The quarters motion is very challenging for the opposition to defend, most especially if we're trying to picture or to paint a picture of a government which is very hardline in terms of keeping its people to stay in the country. What I want CNN to work on is that how are they going to be more hardline in terms of counter-attacking the motion, most especially that in the quarters they will be standing as the opposition.
I'm going to walk down over here to the opposition team. Have you ever considered studying abroad?
Yes.
Yeah?
We all are.
How about there's an international university where it would be exactly the same, maybe say in America, but they also have a branch in Vietnam. Would you rather study in Vietnam at that same university or go to America and get the same education? What would you prefer?
America.
America, I guess.
America?
Yeah.
Interesting. LIVEL, I'm going to ask you the same question. So, what would your answer be?
I am not going to study abroad.
Not study abroad.
I do not feel like I'm in need of studying abroad.
Okay, interesting. And again, congratulations, you guys. This is the quarterfinal, so thank you. Okay, Golden. Today is going to be a good debate. And of course, we can't have a debate without our lovely judges. So, without further ado, let me introduce the contestants for the first round. So, from the proposition team, Team LIVEL, please welcome John, my Jum. From the opposition team, CNN Breaking News, please welcome Min Joe. All right, girls, welcome. Quarterfinals. Chào ôi. Come to you, because you're smiling, you're looking ready. How are you feeling?
Right now, I feel that it was a lot of excitement more than nerve.
Yeah, it's after you do it the first time, it's a huge weight off the chest. So I'm hoping you're feeling more relaxed because it's easier to deliver the speech. So good. I'm very, very happy to hear that. All right, Drum Oi.
Hello.
Hi. Are you feeling better this debate?
Not really sure because I will start first in the debate and that that made me really nervous.
So last time you started first as well, but you're still nervous.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind you guys again, if you do lose, there is a chance the judges will pick one team to move on to the semifinals. So just keep that in mind, relax, and let's get ready. So for the first round, you have 3 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is not open. Proposition team, you will be going first. Do you girls understand? Perfect. Let the debate begin.
The story of studying abroad has been a controversial affair. Many students study abroad, but in recent years, the rate of international students in university has dropped. For example, U.S. colleges report a 43% decline in international students due to several reasons like COVID-19 pandemic or the risk of brain drain. And this number is predicted to fall down in the future. Therefore, coming to this debate, what is our stance? That we will use media to persuade people to stay, and we will also take away some benefits, so they have to stay in their home country. So first, what is the problem? Coming to our first claim is that to improve the quality of the domestic educational system. So what is the problem? For decades, developing countries have loads of money to their citizens' education in developed countries. For example, in 2018, Vietnam spent about $890 million on students enrollment only in the US. Imagine if only half of the students stay in Vietnam, we will save $445, which is 5 times the investment capital. And at the same time, many universities in developing countries cannot have their enrollment slots filled. This has proven why it has been so hard for many local universities to develop its teaching quality, because they are too busy filling up their enrollment slots and they don't have enough money to reinvest. So what are our solutions? First, we will increase the investment to top school. Second, we will increase the competition between top public schools, private school, and international school. For example, BUV, a prestigious international university of high quality education in Vietnam. And there will be more talented students from privileged background with higher expectations for their education. And that will also increase the pressure for government to bring out policies to meet the expectation of that students. So, what are the impacts? First, government and universities will have more incentives to invest in more facilities for schools that are leading the educational system. For example, BIjourd Universities is having new major like nursing or data science, and we can invest into those majors, right? Second, schools will be better quality and have better facilities that will increase the number of talented and potential students to enroll, and they will considerably contribute to the workforce of the developing countries. And the second argument will be represented by second speaker of our team. For a long time, we have many talented people in our country, but they choose to study abroad. That's why today it's time for us to stand on our feet. Thank you.
So the proposition team came here and tell me that the status quo is not that urgent because the rate of people going out and study abroad has dropped, and there are more options for them to choose from. So I don't see why that they are so panicking about disincentivizing others to not to go to study abroad. I think on this side they are agreeing to us that the status quo is not so urgent that we need that policy. And secondly, they're mentioning about the quality of the education. So I believe that the quality of education in the developing countries is lower than that of the developed country because they're lacking innovations and lacking up-to-date knowledge and technology and etc. Therefore, I believe that sending people to study abroad is the most effective way so that they can get the most newest knowledge so that they can absorb that essences, which will be later on explained on our side. So what are the problems in the developing countries? One, their education has yet to have enough materials to best exploit and develop the students. For example, they don't have advanced teaching program or modern facility in certain branches. And two, they are in need of more high-skilled workers and modern technology to faster its pace of keeping up with other countries. So on our side of the house, we're coming here with the goal of one, developing the students, and two, developing the nation. So I believe that the winning side have to best achieve these two goals. So now, instead of disincentivizing them, the opposition side would incentivize them to, one, return to the homeland after they go to study abroad by having preferential treatment, for example, offer them higher salary. Two, incentivize them to, at the same time, reform the domestic education quality. And three is that to inform them about their path, about their agenda, so that they won't just blindly go to foreign countries. Now, having a look at the first argument is that we can guarantee the potentials of the students best exploited and the responsibility of the government to ensure the well-being and the rights of their students. So the reason why they got to go to study abroad because they see that the domestic market cannot offer them the chances and the knowledge, the modern things that they want. So I believe that having access to those materials will get them absorb the essences, and then their expertise is reinforced and multifaceted are exploited. So this is important because we have satisfied one, their better exploitation, and two, their well-being and rights. So this is the responsibility of the government. Therefore, proud to oppose.
It's done and over with. Joe, Jum, you did it.
Yeah, we did it.
I will ask you questions, but first we're going to hear from the judges. So judges, okay, please, let's hear some of your thoughts.
Well, I think in the first turn, there was not a lot of events happening. Teams were playing very safe. Both tried to bring up careful, prepare case setup and arguments. I think for the prop side, I got a lot of numbers from your side. I got a lot of explanation. I just wish that you didn't read so much from your notes because when you tried to explain it, there was a lot of points where I hope that you can stop there, explain further for us, but you're just going on with the plan, which I felt a little bit like hard to, absorb in all of the information at the same time. But I understand your point was transfer. It's basically pressuring the government now to do better policy for it. I think this is not a very, very strong, start. For the opposition side, I think that you try to bring up, the case setup as well. But in terms of rebuttal, it was a little bit lacking in this particular case. And I do not see you directly confront the proposition side in this particular turn. Not to mention that your argument about responsibility of government is not very, very clear yet. For that being said, honestly, I do not have a lot of things to work on. I would love to give the proposition the point, but I'm very hesitant because you didn't give me all of the persuasiveness that I need from the first speakers. So I would say that my 10 points would go to proposition side this time, but you need to try harder next time because I think this is not very, very, strong speech that you can give.
Okay, thank you, Ung. Stuart.
Okay, I'll start with the proposition sides. I think the fact that you were at an early stage thinking about the stakeholders at play here and the further impact of the motion is good. Mentioning there will be an increase for the government to, or the increased pressure on the government to meet the standards of these students that are staying here. So I think that is good. And also the implication that this may have on the workforce if we maintain keep the students here, then what is this going to do for our workforce? I would say, in terms of one of your points that you mentioned earlier, that we would save money if students don't go to an international university. I'm not really sure who we is here. I think you might be saying that this money will maintain in Vietnam, but I need a bit of clarification as opposed to how are we saving money, and maybe a bit of a development on that as well. For the opposition side, I did actually quite like your rebuttal. I know it wasn't one of the major points that the proposition said, but I do think that you actually picked it apart quite clearly and quite cleanly. The fact that they're mentioning that international universities are actually reducing the amount of foreign students that they have doesn't actually support their point, and I think that you picked it out very clearly and quite succinctly there. For me, I like the idea that you're mentioning that, okay, we need to actually create innovation and have educated people to then eventually come back to the country. For me, in terms of the points that I felt the most convincing, between the two sides, I will have to go for the opposition side for the first round.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart. And Hugh, looking at your body language, I don't think you're super happy at the moment.
No, sadly, yes. I'm not super happy with the first round, and here's the reason why. I think I agree with UIN that you guys are playing very safe, and I think both are a little bit off topic. And I think that is probably something you have to watch out for. And I want to explain why. With the proposition team, you talk mostly about like if the students stay in the country, then they have money stay in the country, and then you have chance to invest into others, private universities or public universities, right? I think you have to be very clear how is that going to happen. I think like it's not a policy situation here, but like just because students stay in the country with the money, does it necessarily mean that there's going to be more university coming up with high quality, or you may end up with a lot of like public universities stuck in low quality again? So I think like I see the point there, but I don't see the connection in your argument and reasoning to lead to that conclusion. So I want you to really explain it to me. With the opposition team, yes, you bring on a very strong, spot-on rebuttals about the numbers and the statistics to prove that the status quo is not urgent enough for any change. But my problem with your case is, in your argument, it feels like you're trying to debate on the motion about should students study overseas or should students stay at home to studies. It sounds like you want to prove that the quality at home is not good enough, so students should go overseas to study. It's slightly leaning towards that motion. So I think you need to make it stronger about now we should disincentivize them, and you have to prove why we should not disincentivize them. Otherwise, I think you may be a little bit further away from the topic than the proposition team. Okay? For that particular reason, I give my 10 point to the team that is less further away from the debate motion. And in that case, the proposition team get 10 points from me.
All right. Thank you, judges. So jump. I'm going to start with you. You got 20 points. Were you expecting that?
Well, not really, because I can see that my opponent, she did really well. Yeah. And I was really impressed by her accent and her ideas.
Yeah, but you did take 10 more points though. But the judges were not really excited about this round for the both of you. So your teammates, there's a little bit more pressure on them, but 10 points in the first round is not that significant. So just again, keep that in mind. All right, Jiao Oi.
Yes.
Still with a great big smile on your face. Are you still happy?
Sure, because although I lost 10 points, but I've got tons of useful comments, which I know that will be a lot of help to my teammates next round.
So girls, thank you so much. Please return back to your seats. Thank you. Currently, right now, the proposition team, Team LIVEL, they have 20 points. The opposition team, CNN, Breaking News, they have 10 points. It's still the first round. We have 3 more rounds to come. And things can change quite drastically within the next 3 rounds. We'll begin the second round right after the break.
many universities in developing countries cannot have their enrollment slots filled. This has proven why it has been so hard for many local universities to develop its teaching policy.
I believe that sending people to study abroad is a way, is the most effective way so that they can get the most newest knowledge.
I think you might be saying this money will maintain in Vietnam, but I need a bit of clarification as opposed to how are we saving money?
Welcome back to the second round of the quarterfinals. So without further ado, let me introduce the contestants for the second round. From Team LIVEL, please welcome my Nguyễn, khuyến, Tranh. From the opposition team, Team CNN Breaking News, please welcome Đến, John, Phương, Linh. Second round of the quarterfinals. Let's start over here with the opposition team. How are you feeling?
Kind of nervous, but still fine.
Okay, and you were listening to the judges, so did you make any changes to your delivery right now?
Well, of course.
Of course. Good. Good. Because Hugh is the judge that's probably the hardest to please, and then second would be Ung. Stuart can go back and forth. Let's see if the judges respond differently after the debate. Okay. Doing okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Very well.
Very good?
Okay.
Feel nervous?
I do feel nervous, but...
Okay, but you have 10 points. Yeah. You're winning by 10 points.
Okay.
Does that make any difference for you?
No, it makes no difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, let me explain the second round for you. Yeah, the second round, you have 4 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is entirely open. Proposition team, you will be going first. Opposition team, you will be going second. Do you girls understand the rules? Perfect. Let the debate begin.
Your teammates has stood here and told me that they will make the students who go study abroad coming back to Vietnam by offering them higher salary. However, we are not convinced by this idea because higher salary compared to who? And is that higher salary higher than what they can make in the foreign countries where they study? And I believe that salary should be based on the work effectiveness and how can you be sure that the students who go abroad and coming back to Vietnam will work more effectively than students who study higher education in Vietnam. And will that solution will facilitate an unfair situation in the working environment? And coming to our second claim today, we believe that if students stay in Vietnam to study, we will solve the social problems of Vietnam. And here will be the reason why. Firstly, I will characterize what is the practical issue. Practical issue here are the issue that is concerning in developing countries. However, it is not a big concern in developed countries. And what are the problems that we are facing here? There are 2 main scenarios. Firstly, if they go study abroad, they will not return, and therefore social problems in their home country will not be solved obviously. And our second scenario that they will go study abroad and they do return. However, the knowledge that they have acquired from foreign university is not compatible in their home country context. So what is our solution? If we disincentivize them to make them study in Vietnam and get a Vietnamese degree, it is not likely that they will go abroad and have a job in another country because a Vietnamese degree is not that qualified for foreign jobs. And our second solution today is that we will offer a study program which aims at solving the practical problem in the home country. For example, economic course of university full price for the first year students. They have to write a research paper on the Vietnamese topical economics issue. For example, the food and nutrition in west and northern parts of Vietnam. And secondly, the child labor in Vietnamese ethnic minority. And these students are very likely to solve the current social issue in Vietnam, while other students who study in America don't. And what are the impacts that we made by offering this solution and solve the practical problem? Firstly, if we are able to solve the practical problems, then we can enhance the life quality of the citizens in this developing country. And secondly, if we can solve that social problem, we can offer high-skilled workers, which is alike in the home country. And for example, in debating is a necessary skills, and critical thinking is what children need to have a successful future. However, to talk about the instructors who can get students through debate in Vietnam, the number of instructors in debating is not that much. And our second impact here is that if we disincentivizing students from studying abroad and make them study in Vietnam, they will also be an incentive for foreign students to come back to Vietnam again. Why? Because we offer more worth living condition and more opportunities for them to develop in their home country. Thank you.
If the window of opportunity appears, don't pull down the shade. This is exactly what the government side is doing in this debate, pulling down the shade onto the development of both the individual and their own nation's development when disincentivizing these students. Now, for the first part of my speech, I'm going to offer some rebuttals. Firstly, for the first speaker, she believes that they can try to use media so that can solve the problem of students going abroad. Two main points here. Firstly, outside the house, we believe that when stating the fact that there has been a lack of investment onto the universities inside the countries, there's been a lack of investment whatsoever inside the countries. The use of media will still take some kind of money, and we believe that this use of media does not worth the amount of investment that was meant to develop countries later on. Now coming to the second speaker point, she believes in the matter of fact that these students can stay in Vietnam so that can get Vietnamese degrees so as to solve the problem inside Vietnam only. And they also believe in the matter of fact that these students who studies abroad will not have that kind of ability to solve this problem. However, outside the house believe that it is completely invalid. Why? Because our main goal for education today is actually to train somebody to become the global citizens so that he or she can go anywhere and still adapt into that situation, rather than creating a small bird that can only stay inside the cage that the other side of the house is actually building in this debate. Now, coming to our first claim, we believe that by not disincentivizing students from pursuing higher education overseas, we will promote the development of these developing nations. Why? Firstly, we believe that we will allow the technology value method transfer. Firstly, the motivation to for these students to actually get back to their homeland and then contribute is that first they have incentives and also offerings by the government, which are like special treatment, etc. Second, they have close family ties so that they can go back with their family. And also they are patriots who love their nation and want to go back to develop and contribute to their home country. The impacts of this is actually that developed countries will be better because of the fresh knowledge and innovative skills learned from studying abroad. They will also have skills learned, and they will also have these skills shared throughout the process of being the workers, professors, or leaders, etc. The only difference between developing country and developed countries nowadays is not actually the amount of workers they have, but otherwise the method and also the quality of these values inside each worker. So outside the house, we believe that we can actually, if in the case that we can actually have those people who come back from foreign countries and adopt all of these kinds of abilities, we can still solve the problem and also adapt to the environment in Vietnam. Coming to a second layer, which is raised awareness for government about the education. There are various reasons why students actually choose to study abroad, including poor facility and inadequate learning environment in Vietnam. The curriculum does not place importance on students' welfare, which are mostly the problems in the educational system. And how we will make it significantly better in this debate is that, first, lots of students studying abroad as a trend will be a signaling mechanism, which makes the state actually realizing that something is wrong with the education system. Second, huge number of statistics of students studying overseas will force the state to investigate about what is wrong with the nations. And when the results actually comes out, the state will actually have the ability to take up measures to solve the problem. For example, in 2016, when a lot of Southeast Asian nations suffered brain drain due to a large amount of potential people or workers study abroad, they actually passed policies to raise the salary and also change the education system, which later on make an improvement. Thirdly, coming to a second arguments of improvement in diplomatic. Students who get abroad has not only the goal to improve themselves, but also mission to contribute to developing countries in one way or another, since they are ambassador. And this is exactly why nations sign an agreement to exchange students as a way to strengthen the relationship. As a result, outside the House believe that in this case, when it is incentivized students, the relationship between these two countries in the region will not be as strong as it is before. From all of this point, proud to oppose.
Okay, great job, girls. That was really, really good. I think the judges are probably going to be a bit happier on this one. I think so. I hope so. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot better. Stuart is smiling. He's looking good. Hugh doesn't look as disappointed, but I will talk with you guys in a second, but first we're going to hear from the judges. Hugh, you're ready to talk right now. What do you have to say?
With the proposition team, I think your rebuttal is basic, simple, but it works because you question about higher salary compared to what, and in the end, salary should be based on working effectiveness as well. Now, with the arguments, this is where I'm starting to have a little bit of struggle because from the first one to the second one, you talk about the labor force, and you think that like students who return from overseas will not be capable as the local students. But to be honest, there's so many things that come into play when it comes to working effectiveness. Knowledge, skills, characters, and even knowledge and skills, some are transferable across contexts, some are very specific, and not all industry and not all jobs require just local knowledge and skills. That particular weakness is picked on the opposition team when they say that something needs to be a global mindset and a global skill and adaptation rather than just localization. So I think with that weak point, the opposition team pick up quite nicely on that one. That rebuttals on the opposition team works for me, but the first rebuttal about using media is still very shaky. I need more extension and enrichment. Now you go into the arguments with 3 arguments about technological transfer. It's a signaling mechanism and the motivation for actually university domestically to develop and the strengthening of relationship. Out of those 3, I think the second one is actually the best one, which is like, it's actually, when we not disincentivize students, it's a signaling mechanism for local university and government to actually innovate. I think that is a very smart move to actually throw a lot of the argument of the other team away. With that said, I give my 10 points to the team that further elaborate and extend, and I have more ideas to work with in this second round. And that's why my 10 points in this round go to the opposition team.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Stuart.
Like you, I actually think, Chum, for the proposition side, I enjoyed your rebuttal. I think it was nice picking up on this concept of a higher salary. Who are we comparing this to? And this notion of actually maybe it could lead to an unfair situation where people are coming back and we're all automatically giving them higher salaries just based on the fact that they were educated outside. So although that kind of does happen in reality to an extent, you mentioning the fact or highlighting the fact that this is actually a core kind of result of implementing this sort of idea is good. The mentioning of universities that do offer courses that may help provide a bit more focus on the issues happening in Vietnam. I like the concept, but I think in reality, do we have enough of those universities and do we have enough students that are eligible to go to those universities to make it an impact as equally big as the amount of students going overseas as well. So I think thinking about the reality of, okay, do we have enough of those examples to warrant that being like a strong case. For the proposition sides, I liked that you kind of framed your idea of education as being a global citizen. And finally, the notion of diplomacy in the whole kind of grand scope of global citizen for me was a good point that you put forward. So looking at both sides, for me in terms of the actual points put across and the, I guess at this point the breadth of points or ideas put across, for me it's going to be Phung with the opposition sides. You got my 10 points for this round.
Okay. Things are looking interesting right now. So, Ue, the last judge, what do you have to say?
I do agree with Mr. Hiếu that some of the explanation was a little bit naive. It was a little bit overgeneralized on the proposition side. For the opposition side, I really like the way that you explain your idea a little bit more than the prop side. I think that there's a lot of ideas were put on the table, which is great for discussion. But at the same time, I felt like your rebuttal was actually standing on not a very strong ground. As in, until now, I'm still questioning, like, you keep saying that students will come back, you will somehow get them to come back after the education, but I do not see any incentive for them to come back, given what the proposition side had given to me about the salary matter and stuff like that. And a lot of your argument actually based on that as well. So I think that is a very, very shaky route that this debate is standing on. Actually, I think the judges today came to the consensus result, and I also agree that my 10 points will go to the opposition side.
So judges, thank you. So Lynn, you were losing before. The judges gave you all 30 points. Are you feeling happy or kind of sad because the judges were also not very excited in this round?
I don't feel happy, but I don't feel satisfied with my own speech.
All right, so thank you so much, Lynn. All right, John. Oi, how are you doing?
I did not regret.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Because do you have debate experience?
No.
So the whole team does not have any debate experience. Okay. Again, being able to come here and do this with no experience, just think about that. That is awesome. So girls, thank you so much. Please return back to your seats. Thank you. So currently, right now, Team LIVEL, they have 20 points. Team to the left, they have 40 points. Team CNN Breaking News. We just finished the second round. We still have the third round and the final reply speech. Are things going to change? I don't know, but we're going to find out after the break.
I believe that salary should be based on the work effectiveness. Solution will facilitate an unfair situation in the working environment.
Students who get abroad has not only the goal to improve themselves, but also mission to contribute to developing countries in one way or another, since they are ambassadors.
I do agree with Mr. Hiếu that some of the explanation was a little bit naive. It was a little bit overgeneralized on the proposition side.
Welcome back to the third round of the Debaters Season 2. So, without further ado, let me please welcome the contestants to the third round of the Debaters tonight. Coming from Team LIVEL, please welcome Nguyễn Thanh Loan. From CNN Breaking News, please welcome Nguyễn Hải An. Okay, third round of the quarterfinals. So, Hải An, I'll start with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
You think? Why
Yes.
with the think?
I'm just doing my best, so I think the result will not disappoint me too much.
Yeah, that's all you can do is just doing your best. So I wouldn't worry too much in that sense. So just focus on that. All right, Loan, how are you?
Speechless.
Speechless. But did you get to have cá Hoàng đế the other day? Did you guys eat that the other day?
Today.
Today. Okay, so you're going to have it today. Yes. Because for the audience at home, they're from Dong Nai, and I like Dong Nai, so it's just our little inside joke. But for you guys, the third round, similar to the second round, you have 4 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is entirely open. Proposition team, you will be going first. Opposition team, you will be going second. Do you guys understand? Yes? Okay. So let the debate begin.
Every country in the world encourages students to study abroad, but this method poses great risk and drawbacks. Our team today is to support this motion of incentivizing students from going overseas educations. And I will state the reasons why. First off, I will strengthen the claims of speaker number 1 and speaker number 2. Our first speaker emphasized the necessities of capital needed for a nation to develop the educational system up to an educational level, and this eventually attracts students to stay, and this asserts that the country itself is fully independent in creating high quality human resources, and thus shall evolves flawlessly. Instead of going out to the world, we bring the world home. For the second speaker, the social issues in our world is also solved by efficient orientation from the government and internationally based education. Take the example of the BIểN University. Its principal is a foreigner, and they implied foreign educational programs. And you cannot say that we don't have international cooperation, because we only limited the amount of students overseas, not completely banning them from going overseas. Coming to the rebuttal part, the first speaker of your team stated that only with advanced teaching programs and technology from the countries, only that the educational system can improve. But that can be easily achieved through international cooperation, and that can happen in both worlds. Furthermore, she stated that higher salary attracts students to stay, but the amount of overseas students is really large, and how much of the salaries are you going to rise? Furthermore, Vietnam is a developing country, and even if we rise the salaries, it is still much lower than that of the developed countries, and that is not enough to attract the students to stay. And finally, clarification of the clashes. You haven't showed us the mechanism of ensuring how they will return to the motherland. What if they don't return? The country itself lost the money that they invested into the students, and they lost the good students that they are worthy to have. And furthermore, will the things you learn be applicable into our countries? A country cannot innovate and develop if the basic issues in that countries haven't been resolved. And in our world, with limited overseas students, we both ensured that we have a balance between the global education and the local education. We both develop locally and globally. We solve the local issues while developing ourselves. We learn the technology, we have the technology through cooperation, and we have the advanced teaching programs. I rest my case.
Proposition side come up and say that they want the countries to be independent, but they have forget that this country is a developing country. And if you go independent and you don't collaborate with others, you cannot go up. Like, proposition has two reasons why we should disincentivize, but I will prove to you why it's all not reasonable. So the first reason is that students will never come back or benefit their home country. But we have said in our solution from the first speakers that we push them to go to university that are built to help developing countries from the first place, and we also incentivize them to come back. B, even when they don't go to those unis, they will still contribute back, since most of the citizens have a sense of patriotism, because we are born and raised in that country. And C, even when they don't have that much connection with the country, everybody will have a strong ties with their family living back in their home countries. And so on our world, they come back and contribute, but on the proposition world, they cannot even contribute because they don't have anywhere to explore their potential. And even when those students don't directly contribute to their countries, it's still beneficial to that nation as a whole, because we can increase in diplomatic relationship with other countries. And also we can create an image of Vietnamese students, so we can attracting foreign corporations, organizations to look at that. And on the point of the diplomatic relationship, that is why nations sign agreement to exchange students. For example, countries in the same union like ASEAN, such as the ASEAN Scholarship. And the second reason why the proposition disincentivize is that they say that the knowledge that we gain is not compatible, but that is a very weak reason. Sorry, not to push them into foreign schools, because the reason why it's not compatible usually because we are not as developed as that country. So the solution is to follow that developed country, not to neglect them and slower your rate of development. So you don't want to creating a box that like isolate all your students from the rest of the world and expect them to catch up with the rest. So what does the proposition say to solve the problem that they brought up? They say that they will like invest in the education and therefore they can exploit the students' right. But that is a very large assumption because A, how many years will you need to improve your education? Not like obviously not 1 or 2 years, but many years. The students have gone out of their age of studying and they lose out many generations. But B, even when your education can develop, it's a very slow rate. So the speed, while the speed of the rest, the speed of the developed nation still increases each day, but on your proposition side, the gap between developing and developed nation just grow larger every day. And also, you say that you will like increase the demand and then thus you can develop more, but that is very bizarre because when you identify that brain drain is the problem to your education system, so when you can solve that, you will have the illusion that it is fine already and you don't focus more. While on our side, when people go out too much, we will send a signal that we have to change the education. So we also have to change internally, but we also allow students to explore their potential, that those potential that cannot be exploited by their home country. So on the proposition, they lose on many potential and they lose on the relationships to other countries. So in the end of the day, we believe that we are the one who benefit the most important and the most important factors. Thank you.
All right, the third debate is over, okay? You guys feeling better now, a little bit relieved?
Yeah.
Yeah? But judges, Hugh?
The proposition team come in and I think you try to consolidate and solidify a lot of the reasonings of your team members that have done before. That's why you spend a lot of time on really cover on the loophole of your team members. That's why it's hard, you don't have enough time to wrap up the case at the end. But just judging on the solidification of your team members' argument, I think every single point works. And I think towards the end, I think you come up with a stance where I kind of agree. It's like you can still have students go overseas, but by limit them, you still have a foundation to build the quality of education institute inside. So that way you can have both local good improvement in local education, but also have global elements as well through students going overseas and also through bringing like high quality program and professors overseas into Vietnam. I think based on that so far, I think you do a good job. Now with the opposition team, you don't need to do a lot because I think the second debaters and the first debater had kind of like consolidated a lot of the arguments already. So with the thing about like diplomacy, there's not much of extension on the diplomacy arguments, which I expect more. There's not much extension on the technological transfer, which I also expect more from the second debater as well. So I feel sometimes it goes to just a little bit of repetition for me in a few of the arguments. There's a few naive arguments here. For example, you say that Vietnamese students go overseas, it sends a good signal for foreign corporation to go invest in Vietnam. I think that is a very naive argument. You don't attract corporation to go to your country just because your students sent overseas are good. You know, they come here for different reasons, not because of the image that you send overseas. So I think judging on debating skill is an easy 10 for you, but judging on as of right now, I think whatever team have a stronger positioning and standing, I think the proposition team do have a better standing than your team. That's why my 10 point go to the proposition team.
Okay. Hugh, thank you. Stuart.
Yeah, I think both teams came back, particularly with the proposition team, rethinking their notion and focusing mainly on disincentivizing education, or just at least disincentivizing people going abroad. I think that is for education, that is the main kind of idea that people needed to focus a bit more on in this debate, and I think that you actually did manage to go away and start to focus on it a little bit more clearly in that final round. Like you, I think the mentioning of the limitation of a higher salary, or looking to the other team's argument that yes, we're going to provide a higher salary, but actually there is a massive limitation there. Where are these funds going to come from, and how are we going to make them seem more attractive than the higher salaries that they can be offered elsewhere? For the opposition side, I do like the fact that you focused more on the kind of motivations of why people may come back. I think that was kind of lingering around for quite a while, and nobody had really addressed it. And so I like the fact that you did mention the certain ideas of why people may want to come back to the country. What are the motivations that they do have? Because no one at this point had really addressed that. Because you were addressing directly the issue of motivation, which no one had really been addressing a huge amount before, you will get my 10 points for the opposition team, mainly because I think we needed to have that addressed, and you guys did that quite well in your last round.
All right, thank you, Stuart. And last but not least, Wing. Hi.
Right now, since the gap between two teams is actually a little bit significant now, I would look into each case and I would try to see which team has a bigger loophole in here and which team has a bigger problem with the foundation. Look at the prop sign here. I think your main case in here is that saying eventually this is the only way that going to pressure the education system in developing country to change, to develop. I have two questions in here. First question is that why you think this is the only or maybe the better way than the opposition side's method. Second of all, how long does it take, or is it going to worth it for the wait? And I think the op side has successfully raised the second question for me, but the first question I still think that it's left unattended. The op side today, I think you brought up, some naive argument, but I must say that talking about skills, those questions are creditable, those questions are real, and those arguments are real, and I think that I can credit for that. Of course, more explanation would be welcome, but I would say that what you say actually does exist. It's just on a very small scale. I appreciate the fact that you brought to me the flaw in the proposition side, and from there you didn't stop. You even explained further. You say it's going to take like generation, and even if it happened, it's going to be very, very low rate. So I really, really appreciate that part. Saying that, honestly, I think that the debate is actually quite clear for me which team is winning and which team deserves the win. I would give my 10 points to the team that I think have done better in this particular round. And I do not believe that the reply speech can turn around everything completely. So sorry for the proposition side, but my 10 points will go to the opposition side.
All right. Thank you, Wing. So you guys have heard it. So right now we have 60 points for Team CNN Breaking News, 30 points for Team LIVEL. All right, hi, Anne. I think you're probably feeling quite good right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So congratulations. All right, Luan. The good news, this is the quarterfinals, and one team who will end up losing in the quarterfinals will be selected to move on to the semifinals. So it is not technically over yet. So keep that in mind. Keep it in mind. So you guys, hi Anne, Luan, thank you so much. Please return back to your seats. So currently, right now, Team LIVEL, the proposition team, has 30 points. The opposition team, Team CNN Breaking News, has 60 points. Yes, the winner is already determined. However, we do have the final reply speech with another 15 points. But for the viewers at home, a team from the quarterfinals that does end up losing, they do have a potential opportunity to move on to the semifinals. So it might not be over for Team LIVEL. They could move on to the semifinals. So it's very important for the reply speech. But we'll start the reply speech right after the break.
You haven't showed us the mechanism of ensuring how they will return to the motherland. What if they don't return?
While on our side, when people go out too much, we'll send a signal that we have to change the education.
So with the thing about diplomacy, there's not much of extension on the diplomacy arguments, which I expect more.
Welcome back to the final reply round. Currently, right now, the proposition team has 30 points. The opposition team has 60 points. However, the show is not yet over, and we still have 15 more points to give. So, from the proposition team, Team LIVEL, please welcome Mai Nguyen Nguyen Zhan. From the opposition team, Team CNN Breaking News, please welcome Din John Fung Lin. Hi. Because I mentioned a couple times, it's not yet entirely over. There's still a chance to move to the semifinals. Do you feel pressured at all, or just kind of indifferent?
I'm okay.
You're okay. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Lynn, hi.
Hi.
I think you're probably feeling relieved.
Yeah, but I still want to get the 15 points.
Okay, I'll just leave it at that. We'll just get started straight away into the speech. For the final reply speech, you have 2 minutes to deliver your speech. POI is not open. Opposition team, you will be going first. Proposition team, you will be going second. Do you girls understand? Yes. Awesome. Let the final reply speech begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, the proposition side is actually living in a world full of illusion of assumption. Now, as a reply speaker, I will put forward two things. Firstly, the sum up of our side of the house case, as well as the comparison between two sides of the house case. Now, firstly, the sum up. We outside of the house believe that we have actually fulfilled our own goals in the first place to ensure the rights of these students who have the dream of higher education overseas. Second, we also pursue our own goals of developing our own countries educationally, socially, and diplomatically. Now, coming to the second part of my speech, the comparison. We believe that the case of the opposition side is a wild chairs of assumption. From the first speaker, they have actually admitted that the status quo is not that urgent, since the rate of people who are going back to their countries are actually going down. Also, they also believe that if the student actually stays, they will still make more money compared to studying abroad. We will outside the house believe that this is quite a very big assumption, since your side of the house has not yet proven to us how and why they will make more money compared to studying abroad. Thirdly, they also believe in the matter of fact that more investment equals to higher quality. They actually, based on a very loosened setup, have little analyzing to prove two questions. Firstly, why do they need the policy that is urgent? Second, how can they actually reach their goal of ensuring the rights of these students and also developing the countries as well. Comparing to outside the house case, we believe that we actually develop the exclusive diplomatic relationship strength. We also have these students to absorb essences and also fully motivated to return to later on provide what our country needs. Last but not least, also raise awareness so that we can actually develop our country's educational system. From all these points above, proud to oppose.
We are both here to protect the students of one country about whether they should go study abroad or not, and protect the developing countries itself. But here are the reasons why that we think that our solution works. Firstly, about the students themselves. In our case, the worst scenario that may happen is that they do not have the chance to experience high-tech facilities as well as environment. However, if they stay in their country and study in national university or higher education, they still can have a qualified degree and ensured future, and they still can solve the localization problems. So that's why their future is still ensured. But in your words, students may have the chance to go abroad to study. However, you do not make sure that every student will be compatible in the foreign environment. And if your students find themselves lost in the country, it will lead to many serious effects. For example, if they want to come back to their country and restart their education, it may be not very soon. And about the developing country itself, in your word, you say that you will incentivize students to go study abroad. However, who will go and who will stay? If you cannot be sure that students will come back to your country and let the developing country become developed one, and sustainable development of your country is not ensured. However, in our world, when we disincentivize students from going abroad, there will be people who solve social problems and focus on localization. That's why we can keep the balance between localization and globalization. That's why we can attain a more sustainable development than in your world. And thank you.
Finished. Teams, thank you. We're done. That's it. So all that extra nerve, don't worry about it. We're officially done with tonight's show. However, we have 15 more points left, but we'll find out shortly. But girls, please go back to your seats. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Debaters Season 2. We have the final results to offer right now. Currently, Team LIVEL has 30 points. Team CNN Breaking News has 60 points. The judges have 15 more points to offer, and I won't drag this on too long. The first 10 points are going to the opposition team. Congratulations, you got 10 points out of the 15 with a total of 40 points. For the opposition team, Team CNN Breaking News, your total tonight is 65 points. Congratulations, Team CNN Breaking News. Again, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the Debaters. This is the quarterfinals. However, it may or may not be done for you guys, okay? The final reply speech, you got 10 of the 15 points, which is solid, which is really good. For the semifinals, there will be one wild card team, so keep that in mind, okay? Keep that in mind. And I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, British University of Vietnam. Thank you so much. For the audience, contestants, judges, viewers at home, have a great night. See you later with another episode of The Debaters.